Have you ever noticed that your dog seems to follow one person from room to room? You stand up to walk into the kitchen, and a moment later, your dog slowly stands up too. Not running, not excited, just quietly walking after you. Sometimes they lie down again a few feet away. Sometimes they simply stay nearby while you move around the house. And interestingly, in many homes, dogs tend to follow one person more than everyone else, even when several people live in the same house. And surprisingly, the reason often has nothing to do with food. So why does this happen? Why do many dogs seem to stay closest to just one particular person? In fact, it's not always the person who feeds them. Sometimes the dog simply chooses to stay near someone even when nothing interesting is happening. So what are dogs really responding to when they quietly follow someone around the house? Dogs rarely follow someone for just one simple reason. In many cases, this behavior reflects something deeper about how dogs form attachment and trust. And once you begin to understand these quiet patterns, it becomes much easier to see why your dog may choose to stay close to you throughout the day. Dogs are naturally social animals. Because of this, they rarely like being far away from the people they trust. When a dog forms a bond with someone, being close to that person simply feels natural. You might notice this during ordinary moments at home. You walk into another room, and a few seconds later, your dog slowly follows behind. Not because they were called, not because they want something, but simply because being near that person feels familiar. For many dogs, staying close to someone they trust is one of the most natural ways they stay connected. And sometimes, that quiet attachment is the first reason a dog begins to follow one person more than anyone else. But attachment alone doesn't explain everything. Sometimes dogs follow someone for a much simpler reason. Dogs naturally pay attention to movement. When a person stands up, walks into another room, or changes what they are doing, it immediately catches a dog's attention. From a dog's perspective, movement often means something might be happening. Perhaps a walk, perhaps food, or simply something interesting. Because of this, some dogs simply follow to see where that person is going. You might notice this especially when the house is quiet. Someone stands up, and a moment later the dog gets up too. Sometimes they simply watch from the doorway. Sometimes they lie down again near the same person. But curiosity alone does not fully explain why many dogs follow the same person again and again. Because in many homes, dogs don't follow everyone equally. Even when several people move around the house, the dog often chooses to stay closest to one particular person. This is where instinct can begin to play a role. You may have noticed something like this. When you walk into another room, your dog often follows right behind you. This behavior actually connects to an instinct dogs have carried for thousands of years. But curiosity still doesn't explain why dogs often follow the same person again and again. Some of the reasons actually go back much further than life inside a home. Long before dogs lived in human homes, their ancestors lived and moved together in social groups. In a pack, members often stayed close to one another as they moved through their environment. Following one another helped maintain connection and safety. Even today, many dogs still carry this instinctive pattern. Inside a home, the people they live with often become part of their social group. Because of this, some dogs naturally stay closest to the person they feel most connected to. You may notice your dog walking just behind you, or quietly moving to the same room you enter. To us, it can seem like a simple habit, but to the dog, staying close to that person may simply feel like the most natural place to be. And sometimes, there is another quiet reason dogs choose to stay nearby, one that many owners rarely notice. Another reason some dogs follow one person is a quiet sense of awareness. Dogs are naturally attentive to the movements of the people around them, especially the ones they care about. Even in calm environments, many dogs remain subtly aware of what is happening nearby. Because of this, when someone they trust stands up or leaves a room, the dog may instinctively follow, not because they believe something dangerous is about to happen, because staying nearby helps them remain aware of what is happening around them. You might notice this in small ways. A dog walking a few steps behind someone, pausing near a doorway, or quietly settling down in the same room. To many dogs, remaining close to someone they care about simply feels safe. But interestingly, this behavior is not always about awareness or protection. In fact, dogs don't always follow the person who feeds them the most. And sometimes, they don't even follow the person who spends the most time with them. Instead, they often stay closest to the person whose presence simply feels the most comfortable to them. Dogs notice emotional patterns much more than people realize. They notice tone of voice, body language, and the way people react to everyday situations. Some people move quickly and speak loudly. Others move calmly and behave in predictable ways. To a dog, these differences matter. Many dogs naturally gravitate toward the person whose presence feels calm and steady, because that person creates a sense of emotional reassurance. Being near them simply feels calming, and over time, a dog may begin to stay closer to that person throughout the day. Not because they need attention, but because that presence simply feels comfortable. But sometimes the reason a dog follows someone is not about instinct or routine at all. It has to do with how dogs understand the world around them. Dogs also have another interesting habit. When something unusual happens, they often look toward a person they trust. This means they often look to certain people to understand what is happening around them. For example, when a dog hears an unfamiliar sound or notices something unusual in the environment, they will often glance toward a person they trust. They are quietly reading that person's reaction. If the person remains calm, the dog often relaxes as well. Over time, dogs begin to recognize who they rely on most for these emotional signals. And because of this, some dogs naturally stay closer to the person they use as their reference point. Following that person simply makes it easier for the dog to understand the situation. But sometimes, the reason a dog follows someone is even simpler than instinct or awareness. Sometimes, a dog follows someone for a much quieter reason, a bond that is slowly formed through everyday life. And after enough small moments like these, many dogs begin to form a deeper connection with one person. Over time, many dogs quietly form a stronger bond with one person in the household. This bond rarely appears suddenly. Instead, it grows through small daily moments, walking together, speaking gently, sharing quiet time in the same room. These ordinary experiences may seem small to us, but to a dog, they slowly create familiarity, and familiarity often becomes trust. When that bond becomes strong, a dog may begin to stay closer to that person naturally. Following them from room to room simply becomes part of their daily routine, not because they are asked to, not because they expect something, but because that person has quietly become the center of their daily world. If your dog often follows you from room to room, it may not always mean they are asking for attention. Sometimes it simply means they feel most comfortable staying near you. You may notice this during the quiet parts of the day. Walking into another room, sitting down somewhere new, or moving slowly through the house. And without thinking much about it, your dog quietly follows behind. For many owners, this behavior becomes so familiar that they barely notice it anymore. But once you begin to see the pattern, it often reveals something meaningful. Where a dog chooses to stay nearby often reveals where they feel most at ease. And for many dogs, following someone is often just the beginning of a deeper relationship. Over time, dogs reveal their strongest bonds in several quiet ways. It may be the person they follow around the house, the one they glance toward when something unfamiliar happens, or the person they settle beside when the day finally becomes calm. If you look closely, these small behaviors often point to the same person, the one your dog trusts the most. Many dog owners begin to notice this pattern. Once you see it, it's hard to miss. A dog may live in a home with many people, but the person they follow most often is rarely chosen by accident. Over time, that person simply becomes the presence that feels the most familiar, the one whose voice sounds reassuring, the one whose movements feel predictable, and the one they quietly choose to stay near. Sometimes, that quiet habit of following is simply a reflection of the bond they have formed.